Welcome to another episode of Growth Hacker TV. I'm Bronson Taylor, and today I have Chris Rodriguez with us. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Bronson.
Absolutely, and you actually took some time out of your schedule during South by Southwest. You guys actually arrived there yesterday, is that right?
We did, yes. The whole team is here in full force. We have our co-founders, John Bracken and Danny Boyce, as well as a few other members, and we're excited to be here.
Absolutely, I'm jealous. I wish I was there.
Yeah, we try to make it happen in terms of just getting out there and obviously getting the brand out. So everybody's representing the T-shirts and
Yeah.
we've got a nice campaign where we're directing people to a specific URL. So in this case, speak.com/SXSW.
There you go.
And we're incentivizing folks to get a free version of our paid product, which is getting launched in a couple of weeks.
A true growth hacker. Look at him. We start the interview out, and he directs you where to go. That's the way to do it.
There you go.
Watch and learn, folks. Watch and learn.
There you go.
All right, so let's talk about your startup a little bit. You mentioned
Sure.
the name of it was Speek, and that's spelled
Yes.
Speek. Is that right?
Correct.
All right, tell us. What is Speek? What does it do?
So the short story is we are super simple conference calling. So the pain point we are solving today is eliminating the need to remember random phone numbers and random pins. So instead, you would have your own customized URL. So in this case, for example, speak.com/Bronson or speak.com/GrowthHackerTV, and you direct people to that URL, and they simply enter their phone number, and we're suddenly on a call.
Okay.
So that's the bare bones of what we're doing, and from there we are expanding, simplifying business communication through various features. I like to make this very clear and noteworthy that we practice what we preach. We are very much a lean startup. We test and then learn and then build. So
That's great. I mean, in my mind, growth hacking is kind of lean marketing. So I like lean
Absolutely.
startups. I think growth hacking. I think it goes hand in hand. Chris, what is your current role at the company? What do you do there?
So my title is Director of User Growth, but really I like to consider myself a bit of a Swiss Army knife, so whatever's needed at that time, whether it's obviously working on product features for growth or working on a marketing campaign or even doing some sales outreach, whatever needs to happen, I'm generally available for that.
Yeah, and with a small team, that's usually the way it is. It's hard to have one role and only one role because everybody has to make it happen, work together. So that's cool.
Totally.
Now, I'm interested in this because Speek was a part of 500 Startups. Is that right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Dave is very good. Dave McClure, for those who don't know, the guy that started 500 Startups, and he's literally invested in almost 500 startups now. I know he was about ready to cross that threshold recently. He might have already crossed it. But he has got a knack for sizing up a company in just seconds. I mean, he can hear your pitch, hear your plan. He thinks about it for half a second, and then either loves it or hate it, right? Because he's seen so many startups. What got Dave most excited about Speek? Because obviously he got excited about it. He accepted you guys into his somewhat prestigious program. So what got him excited?
Well, I would say that the most exciting part about what we're doing is we are simplifying something that just about every small, mid, and enterprise business professional has the same pain point. And we're not, although obviously we consider ourselves to be visionaries and we have a long-term plan, we're not getting lost. We're not getting lost in where we're going to be in 2, 3, or 4 years. We're looking at today to iterate and build and solve this pain point, and then find other customer pain points and continue to grow in that sense.
Yeah.
So I think just the tightness of what we're about and what we're doing was appealing. And a little bit more context here. So the other partner of 500 Startups, Paul Singh actually doubles his time between San Francisco and Washington, D.C. So that really got the ball rolling. Our CEO, John Bracken, met with Paul while he was in D.C., and that was really what got us going. I'd like to think that we're within the startup scene. We're known at this point throughout Washington, D.C. and the DMV area. So that was definitely a help for us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. How was the experience overall being a part of 500 Startups? Would you recommend it? Do you think you guys could have got where you got without it? How instrumental has it been for you guys, if it was?
Well, I would say this: the most important aspect of being a part of 500 startups, in my opinion, is the access. So, access to advisors,
Hmm.
access to obviously events that you may not have had access to prior. So, that to me is the biggest benefit of being a part of an incubator at that level.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes total sense. One of the things I love
Hmm.
about doing this program is all the smart people I get to talk to. I feel like I'm building my own network because every day, sometimes twice a day, I get to speak with geniuses and I'm learning, I'm
Yeah,
building connections. I mean, it's awesome. So I hear you. The networking
right.
is a huge part of it. It's one of my favorite parts about what I'm doing. One of the things about 500 Startups that's gained a little bit of press has been his web strategy for pirates. Right, you see it on
Right,
YouTube and you see his PowerPoint slides. I wanted
right.
to have you kind of walk us through that, through some of the questions I want to ask you, because being a part of 500 Startups, I'm sure you were exposed to it quite a bit. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say so. And I mean, even beyond just being involved with 500, it's become just sort of commonplace to understand
Mm-hmm.
these five parts of how to grow, quite frankly.
Absolutely.
So I would say, to get into it,
Well, before
you
you do that,
obviously,
I want you to tell our
okay.
audience why is it called Web Strategy for Pirates? Because when you first see it, what does pirates have to do with this at all? Are we talking about pirating software? What is this?
Sure, sure. So it's obviously the R, right? So the acquisition, activation, referral, revenue. That's where this comes from.
Uh huh.
Um, and yeah, I mean, it's more. I guess we like to consider ourselves pirates, ninjas. I don't know,
Yeah, there you go.
but
It kind of fits on
but
both levels, right?
it's just a play on words.
Yeah.
We just try to uh, get rid of the lore
Stuffiness.
of pirates, yeah, and just
Yeah.
focus on getting it done.
Absolutely. Okay, so break us down that acronym. You said it was R, right?
Yeah,
AARRR. So
yeah.
walk us through each of those five just a little bit and tell us what they mean. If somebody hasn't had exposure to it, what it really represents.
Sure. So the first part of the funnel is, of course, acquisition. So what we're talking about there is using any and every channel to get someone's eyeballs, quite frankly, on your site, on your product. And so everything from in the traditional sense from PR, SEO, email marketing, general bartering with other types of companies. So just any way to get you into our world,
Hmm.
and that would be the acquisition
And
part.
that's kind of step
Uh,
one. Get them in your
step
world,
one.
step one. All right.
Step one, and so obviously you want to convert as many of those folks as possible.
Mm-hmm.
With various A/B testing on home pages or landing pages, etc. And the goal is to obviously acquire the user, and the moment they're in your SQL database,
Mm-hmm.
you can consider that part of it completed.
Okay. Perfect. So that's the A. And then from
Correct.
acquisition, you're trying to activate them. Is that right?
Correct. So it's interesting because this part of the R metrics, is sort of depends on your individual definition of what it means to activate. I tend to think of
Sure.
it as from registered user to active user, and what
Mm-hmm.
what the goal for any and all startups should be. The cliche that's thrown around is to find your quote aha moment,
Uh
right?
huh.
And so that would be what is important relative to your product, and what do your users need to do
Mm-hmm.
in order to continue to stay. And
Yeah.
so generally there's onboarding, so giving some sort of an educational screen or flow of screens
Mm-hmm.
that explains your product, or having some sort of action that brings you formally, into the core user bucket, as opposed to just sort of a
Yeah.
fly by day user. So for us in particular, we have actually found that metric sooner than many who are possibly in our public beta stage. And
Uh
so
huh.
our aha moment is any user that uses our product twice. So in other words, they create and deploy two calls.
Uh huh.
They are four times less likely to churn. And
Okay.
so that is our goal, is to activate you on your on your way to that second call,
Yeah, and thank you for the
to show
example.
the
That
value
helps make
proposition.
sense
Yeah,
of it. Absolutely.
definitely.
Yeah,
So
and as you're talking, it reminds me of like who was it? Spotify. They were saying in their own language, they said if they can get somebody to create a playlist, they have a longtime user. There was something magical about the creation of a playlist for them. That was kind of
right,
their. They knew if they got across that threshold, then it got easier for them in terms of keeping that customer around. And so startups need to find that. That's great. So you acquire them, you activate them, depending on what that means for your startup. Where do you go
right.
from there after acquiring and activating them?
So the next goal is obviously to keep them, right? And so one of
Mm-hmm.
the biggest hurdles for any startup is churn. So say marketing department or just anyone for that matter has brought the traffic to acquire the user.
Mm-hmm.
Product team has done an excellent job of activating that user,
Mm-hmm.
but you want to keep them, and so you generally keep them. So the first R of
Mm-hmm.
R metrics is retention,
Yeah.
and you want to keep them by providing value and being top of mind, quite frankly. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say sending emails, providing value on your blog,
Mm-hmm.
and just being timely about your correspondence.
Yep.
So we find hyper targeting our messaging. So, for an example's sake, let's say you had your startup had 10,000 users.
Mm-hmm.
There's a purpose. There's a purpose for the entire blast. So blasting the 10,000 users,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's a separate but arguably even more important um, period where you need to actually email folks who do a particular action, or we call them transactional emails, of course. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so those types of emails help tremendously with retention.
Yeah. As a side note, who does Speak use to do transactional emails? I run Stars myself, and I'm always using and trying different things, and that seems like such a pain to me to get that set up the way that I really
Right.
want it to be. What do you guys use right now, if you don't mind saying?
Sure. Well, we use Mandrill, and
Mm-hmm.
Mandrill is an extension of Mailchimp.
Mailchimp. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's specifically the transactional logical emails,
Yeah.
but using their infrastructure, and we find that just an easy play. You can upload the templates within Mailchimp
Yeah.
and see the metrics as you would any Mailchimp marketing email.
Yeah.
So we like that infrastructure play there, but to get super hyper targeted in
Mm-hmm.
terms of hypothetically speaking, a group of 20 users who have all done the same action, and you want to email those folks.
Mm-hmm.
We've been using Mixpanel Engage,
Yeah.
so the email capabilities within Mixpanel. And there are other tools that we're experimenting with as well, specifically intercom.io.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, that's great. I like to get some of the specifics because sometimes that's helpful for our audience to really learn. Oh, they're using Mandrill. Oh, they're using Mixpanel Engage. Because
Right,
once you know these tools, they're the normal tools that are used. But until you've been exposed to them, it's hard to know where to go to do different things. So that's
right.
great. So you've acquired them, you've activated them, you've done your best to retain them. What's the second R in the equation?
So the second one is, I guess, from a growth hacker's perspective, this would be the secret sauce, right? So
Mm-hmm.
creating your viral loop and having each user be logically incentivized to add another user
Mm-hmm.
to your user base, and so there are different ways that you can do that. So refer 10 users and get something, right? So
Mm-hmm.
get a T-shirt, get money, get a
Mm-hmm.
gift card, get a prize.
Mm-hmm.
But in our opinion, the most successful ones are those that have virality inherently baked into your product.
All
And
right.
so what that means is, similarly to Dropbox, when they give you a file URL to share, by definition, you're bringing someone into Dropbox's world, right? And
There you go.
so they can use your product or they can register at that moment. And so everything related to converting when you send that link. And so
Yeah.
for us, we feel very strongly about scheduling a call.
Mm-hmm.
By definition, a conference call should have obviously at least two people on it, but more
Yeah.
than likely three or more. And so that gives us an opportunity to really drive home the invite process as well as the conversion process for those other parties that are not already registered. So
Absolutely.
that is something that we're very excited to ramp up over the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, let me ask you a little bit about that. And you may not have the metrics yet, I'm not sure. Do you find that people that have joined a conference call that somebody else set up, that you do convert some of those people? Have you find that loop to work somewhat yet?
Yeah, absolutely. And we validated what I had just said about focusing on scheduled call. We validated that by actually using Mixpanel to see our events, and
Mm-hmm.
we have an event for start call, and so registered user who starts a call.
Okay.
But then we have an event for join call, which is
There you go.
either a registered or non-registered user, but someone who is joining the call.
Mm-hmm.
And join call dominates start call 4-1, and so we had seen that that was a big play for us.
Yeah. So when you say it dominated, just more people join calls and start calls, which you would expect.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so, there's one thing to say, yeah, sure, that's logical, but
Mm-hmm.
we obviously want to validate that, and we have, and so
Yep.
that's why we're going to be focusing on that as not so much as a feature, but as a product,
Yeah.
as a flagship part of our product.
Absolutely. And then when that person who joined a call comes back and actually creates an account and starts a call, do you then track that as well so you know that their entry point
Absolutely.
was joining a call? Okay, perfect. So you're closing a
Absolutely.
loop and you're knowing that by the time you retain them, it was because of them joining a call initially at some point in the past. That's great.
Absolutely.
So you've retained them, and then what's the third R?
The third R is revenue, right? So how do we make money?
There you go.
Right, and so
It's an important one.
uh, right. And you might think of the powerful startups that are out there, the Facebooks and Twitters, for example.
Hmm.
There was controversy even while they were having millions and tens and hundreds of millions of users. There was
Hmm.
controversy as to how they would make their money, and so they leaned on the advertising model, obviously,
Hmm.
and I'm sure they could speak better to how they're doing than I could, but
Yeah, sure.
obviously it seems like they're doing quite well.
Seems like doing
Um,
okay.
right. In our case, we are implementing we have a freemium model
Hmm.
that and our paid version of our product will simply have a few more enhanced features than the free version.
Yeah.
That's what we're leading with. Like anything that would need to be tested and validated, we'll be launching that in a couple of weeks,
Absolutely.
and we're excited to do so. So some of those features would be, for example, unlimited amount of callers on a call.
Hmm.
So the free version would have up to 5 callers on a call, whereas the obviously unlimited opens up a world of opportunity for maybe a broadcast usage.
Yeah.
So for a good use case would be PR professionals. So being able to mute all people on a call and just simply broadcasting your voice, and at
Yeah.
that point unlimited callers is quite appealing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And another feature would be for call recording. So call recording is going to be part of our paid model,
Hmm.
and you would essentially have your audio file to do what you will to
Hmm.
continue that use case of a PR professional. Say you wanted to take that and make it into a podcast or a webcast or what
Yeah.
have you, or just keep it for your own purposes or make some edits to it. So
Hmm.
that will be part of our paid model as well.
Yeah, that's great. So thanks for
Mhm.
kind of walking us through those five. I think that's a really good overview you've given us. And if people aren't familiar with it, dive into it deeper. Go learn this because his R has gotten popular for a reason. It really hit on kind of the core of what it means to work with users and your product. Let me
Right.
take you back to kind of the beginning of the funnel a little bit, back to the acquisition phase. You mentioned that Dave lists off several things as a part of the acquisition. Some of those might be PR campaigns, contests, SEM, SEO, blogs. There's all those kinds of things.
Right.
Do you think, from your point of view, as somebody who's in a startup and you're trying to grow a startup yourself, do you think that you should focus on all those a little bit, or should you just find one and really focus and zero in on it? What do you think would be a best practice for that?
Well, I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't put some sort of effort in each one of these spaces.
Hmm.
And so I would say, from a marketing perspective, you want to at least lay the groundwork, right? So from an SEO perspective, you find your key terms, your key opportunities,
Hmm.
you place them, and you see what works. And you tweak accordingly. SEM is, in my opinion, a little more straightforward.
Hmm.
It's more of just the optimization of the landing page, as well as the just finding your terms and having your appropriate bid and creating your
Mm-hmm.
budget, etc. But I definitely think that there needs to be energy there. Others might feel differently. I've definitely seen other perspectives, but
Uh-huh.
I'm a big fan of SEM so long as it's managed and done correctly.
Yeah.
With regards to social media, obviously, I think that bodes well for users having conversations about your product, or it works very well for customer service. So being able to just ask general questions,
Mm-hmm.
and I definitely think there needs to be some energy there. Um, yeah. So outside of that, I mean, just getting creative around getting inbound traffic.
Mm-hmm.
So you might want to create a contest, or you might want to have something that again brings your brand on top of mind.
Yeah.
I definitely think, especially in the early portions of a startup, business development is key.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, we have a rock star at the helm of that, Conrad. Shout out to you. And I think that with that, partnerships are important to use
Mm-hmm.
already existing fan bases, user bases, and find logical ways to interject yourself into these groups.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Let's say as you're going, you find one of these channels just really performs well. I've had people on the show before say that they stumble upon a channel that really brings them 80% of their growth. Do you still feel the need philosophically to focus on everything? If you really know one thing is working extremely well, are you okay letting other things be a little bit on the sidelines if you see that in the metrics? Or do you still feel the need to really diversify?
Well, I mean, I'm of the mindset that again, you need to put effort and energy in each one of these spaces.
Okay.
But realistically speaking, we are a small team. Many
Yeah.
many startups are, even at the seed round phase,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's why I'm a big fan of setting up the infrastructure,
Yeah.
such that not that you let things sort of go by the wayside by any
Mm-hmm.
stretch, but things are moving while you're working on other aspects
So you set up systems for
of
these
getting ready.
things. So you're not
Yeah.
daily managing every possible acquisition channel, but you spend time setting up systems so they're doing what they need to do, and you can move on to other things or whatever you need to be focusing on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're definitely checking daily
Of
for
course.
certain because you want to put out any firestorms.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, in any given moment, you only have X amount of hours in a day, and so there's always that ramped up feature that's going to lead to our hypothesis would be, oh, this is tripling our growth, and so you're focusing on that
Yeah.
while you check in on SEO, while you check in on SEM, while you
Yeah.
see, hey, we've got this awesome write up from such and such PR outlet. So
Mm-hmm.
that's generally the process as I see it.
Yeah, and I wanted to dig in because you're actually leading growth at a startup. So I want to kind of get a feel for how you view just a normal day, what it looks like and what you're actually focusing on. So I wanted to drill down a little bit there. Let me ask you about this. The R, kind of metrics and everything, the R
Right.
system. Do you think that it puts an unhealthy focus on the customer acquisition, customer retention, all those things, and maybe not enough focus on the actual product itself? I'm not saying you're doing this at all, but is it possible for startups to do that where they think it's so much about getting customers, keeping customers, charging customers, that they forget that the product is still massively important? Do you think there's a problem there, and how do you guys balance it?
Well, I wouldn't say there's a problem there, but I would even take it a step prior to say, even before the product, it's about the user,
Mm-hmm.
right? So gathering as much feedback from the user as possible, or from the potential user as possible, as to what he or she might want to see in this product.
All right, so kind of
Uh,
customer development, Steve Blank style.
Customer
Yeah.
development, customer
Yeah.
development is everything, quite frankly, because who wants to build something that no one is really looking for? You need to make sure you've validated that pain point. So I
Perfect.
feel confident that we have definitely done that here,
Yeah.
and we continue to grow features based on customer development. which
No, I think
is
it's a great answer, because if you jump into the R system but you haven't done customer development, now you're marketing for marketing's sake, and you're not
Right.
necessarily marketing something that's a product market fit, or is bridging a need that someone has, a pain someone has. So I like that a lot. A lot.
Right.
As you guys have went through kind of Dave's strategy, and you've heard him speak, I'm sure many times. You get his coaching on things. What part of his strategy helped Speak the most? You mentioned the 5 things, the acquisition, all those things, activation. Of those 5, which one did you see at some point was like, wow, this is really a hole for Speak? This is really something that we haven't wrestled with thoroughly. We don't have the answers. We don't know what to do next. Which of those five really kind of made you guys sit up and deal with?
Well, I would say retention is key.
Hmm.
And so, to that point, we want to make sure that folks think of our product top of mind
Hmm.
versus the competitors. And so, again, continuing to have informative emails
Hmm.
or messaging on platform is helpful. That is definitely a challenge that not only we face, but I would say all SaaS products
Yeah.
face.
It's interesting that you mentioned that one because so many people mention something along those lines. So many people say that they mention retention, but they also mention email. Email is this thing. It's like the unsung hero of the startup world that I think is
Yep.
starting to get some the honors that it should.
Yep.
Email and retention, I mean, it's huge. They go hand in hand in so many ways. Like you said, having the drip campaigns initially of just they sign up, they get an email, all those things, but then eventually having those event-based and notification-based emails that really are bringing them back into your world and using the phrase you use, top of mind, staying wedged in their memory and not being allowed to be forgotten. So I think it's great that retention is something you guys have focused on and learned there. He also mentions. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that also I feel that email is very tangible and straightforward. And what I mean by that
Yeah.
is, the funnel is clear,
Yep.
right? There's an open rate, and then there's a click through rate, and then there's action post click, and so there's really only three variables that you need to be sure to optimize, and especially given the open rate. I mean, from my perspective, you focus on who the email's coming from, as
Hmm.
well as the subject line, right? So there's
Hmm.
only two things to mess with there. So there's only
Yeah.
so many experiments you can run, and then within the well, there's also timing as well,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
timing of the email. But
Yeah.
with regards to once you're in the email,
Hmm.
there's different schools of thought. Do you want to provide so much value and so much text, almost blog post esque,
Hmm.
that could lead to less clicks because someone has already gotten the value from
Yeah.
there, versus almost having a stealthy type of
Hmm.
headline and say click here for more. So there's different ways to go about it. But at the end of the day, I'd like to think that just about every person living in the civilized world has an email account, and
Yeah.
given the popularity of smartphones, everyone's got it on their hip.
Yep.
So if you can nail that, that's a huge win for any
Yeah.
startup.
And you talked about the length of the emails. It's interesting. I think some of the more old school copywriters tend toward those super long, broken up emails, two sentences, two sentences, two sentences, and you
Yeah.
scroll for hours. But then it seems like the new wave is more the 37 signals, short, to the point, get their interest peaked, get them over into your product, try to retain them further there. So would you say you guys lean toward more that style, or do you write the really long ones?
I mean, we've done them all.
Hmm.
In terms of what has been successful for us so far,
Hmm.
I would say maybe no longer than two paragraphs. I would
Yeah.
say has been working for us.
Yeah.
We're still at a phase where we're finding our voice as well,
Yeah.
and so it's not like we have tremendous leaps and bounds amounts of traffic coming to our blog every given day, regardless of the content on it. And so
Yeah.
we do treat it as an opportunity to get our voice across in that email as well. So I say somewhere in the
Absolutely.
middle. Mhm.
Yeah, and then you also mentioned earlier that you use Mandrill, which is there with Mailchimp. Have you guys used you mentioned the timing of the emails? Have you played around with Time Warp very much, where it kind of Mailchimp automatically decides when to send it out, and they kind of do it for you without making you think?
I have not, and thank you for that. I
There you
appreciate
go. Yeah,
that.
time. Well, because
I'll be
think about it,
adding
it's like
that to the repertoire.
yeah, it's one of those things. And then there was another thing that Mailchimp does that I was trying to remember, but I couldn't. But it doesn't matter. But Time Warp was one of them, though. Yeah. So and actually, I don't know if Time Warp works with Mandrill, so you have to look in that to see. I know Time Warp works with just a normal Mailchimp account, but there you go, a little bit of homework.
Right.
So
Yeah. No. Absolutely. No. I appreciate that. I'm
yeah,
definitely. I mean, look. At the end of the day, and just to take a step back, uh, here I am with you, Bronson, on Growth Hacker TV. But at the end of the day, you know, I feel that that's a title that has been thrown around. But the reality is, we're all learning every day.
yeah,
There's
absolutely.
no there's there's people who know their stuff, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't say anyone's a guru by any stretch, because digital marketing and product development
Yep.
is is growing and changing every single day. So we're all in this
Absolutely.
together, I kind of feel.
Yeah, and that actually speaks to why I'm doing Growth Hacker TV. I just felt that there's so much information out there, but it's not being well distributed, well packaged, and conversations like this need to happen. They need to see what we know, they need to see what we don't know, they need to see what they need to go figure out. So people watching this interview, they're going to be empowered by it. They're not going to be discouraged. They're going to realize exactly what you said, that we're all learning. I mean, if people knew how little I knew, they wouldn't come on this show. You know what I mean? And yet I have some success, and I know a little bit about what I'm doing, and I know enough to ask the right questions, and we're all learning, and figuring this thing out. So thanks for
Absolutely.
your humility, because that's what's going to move us all, massively forward.
Absolutely.
Dave also, coming back to kind of some of the things he does, he talks about the metrics and the measurements that you can use, and he breaks them down in terms of quantitative, qualitative, comparative, and competitive. Right? It's kind of a mouthful there. Tell us a little bit about
Right.
each of those four. What do those mean, just super briefly? What is quantitative? What is qualitative, comparative, and competitive?
Sure. So quantitative and qualitative, that's fairly straightforward,
Yeah.
which is tangible data versus sort of feedback or verbiage, and sort of deducing
Mm-hmm.
things from customer feedback and such. They're both equally as important in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And we're of the mindset where you definitely want to make informed decisions based on quantitative data, and validate it with your qualitative data.
Yeah.
So we don't dive off the deep end, so to speak, if two or three or four users say, "Hey, we really want this feature,"
Mm-hmm.
or we're having this particular pain point. It's more of a note, as we look in the data to see if that's in fact what's happening. If there's a particular drop off at a
Yeah.
particular point, or if there's a certain churn rate on the timing of user lifetime, and then we go into the qualitative and say, okay, this makes sense. So that's generally the way that we use those types
So you really use them in
metrics.
conjunction. You let them
Definitely.
inform each other. It's more of a holistic kind of reflexive equilibrium. None of them, are the only thing that matters to you guys.
Right, but listen, if I was on a desert island and I needed to choose one, it'd be quantitative.
All right, that was
For
my next
sure.
question.
Yeah.
There you go.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and in terms of comparative versus competitive, comparative is uh, simply put, A/B testing. So
Yeah.
different types of experiences for your user base.
Mm-hmm.
What are we seeing when users see this particular screen versus that particular screen,
Yep.
and using that to inform our decisions. Competitive is looking at your competition, to see what they're doing and what's working or not working for them,
Yeah.
and just making decisions accordingly as well.
Let me ask you about that last one a little bit, because that's one
Sure.
that people don't talk about a whole lot, and yet we all do. We're all looking
Sure.
at our competitors and figuring out what's best practices. But I read something once that was interesting. It was about I can't remember the exact anecdote, so I apologize for that. But it was someone who ran a prominent startup, and their features were being imitated, even though it was on their product cycle to kill those features because they weren't working. And yet everyone on the outside are looking at them and thinking, oh, they're doing so well. It must be because of those features. Let's copy those features, when they didn't know they were going to be killed in the next few months because internally it wasn't working.
Right.
How do we look at competitors? Because it's hard. You want to look at them and learn from them, but you don't really have access to the data. And so, where do you draw the line? How do you look at a competitor and know what to draw from it? Or is it better just to be a maverick, do your own thing, and let the chips fall where they may?
So one competitive metric that I feel is important and actually very accessible and tangible is search marketing with regards to your competition. You can go to all kinds of websites, keywordspy.com, for example, spyfoo.com, and be able to see how your competitors are performing for paid, where they rank on certain keywords.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that would give you insight as to what keywords they're bidding on,
Mm-hmm.
and with regards to free search SEO. How they're performing there, where they rank on any particular page on a Google search, for example. So that gives you all kinds of insight, as you could imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Just understanding where you want to, where the opportunity may or may not be. If your
Mm-hmm.
competitor is, hypothetically speaking, a Skype or some
Mm-hmm.
sort of billion dollar business,
Mm-hmm.
you might not be able to outbid them on certain core phrases. For example, in our space, conference call itself is one of the most competitive and thereby the most expensive terms.
Okay.
So we have an inherent challenge with regards to anything there. To organically find ourselves on the front page of conference call, probably not going to happen
Yep.
for several years,
Mm-hmm.
if at all. Whereas there are different 3 or 4 word phrasings that we can compete towards, and so just understanding who from our competitors
Mm-hmm.
are thinking in the same way, or who are missing these opportunities. I think that's invaluable.
No, that's great. And thank you so much for kind of walking us through the metrics and the measurements. On the same note,
Sure.
how does Speak capture the data? Because measurement and metrics is all about the data. What tools are you guys using? You mentioned Mixpanel already. Is that kind of
Yep.
your home base? Is that the main thing you use? And what do you mix in, if anything else? Are you using other tools or in-house stuff as well?
Well, yeah, I would say Mixpanel most certainly
Mm-hmm.
is at the core of just understanding user behavior for
Mm-hmm.
us. Google Analytics is a very robust and free tool. So
Mm-hmm.
if used correctly, if you know what particular charts you're looking for, particular screens,
Mm-hmm.
you can really have a ton of value from there. If you were to say, so for example, event behavior
Mm-hmm.
uh, is 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 available within Google Analytics,
Mm-hmm.
so long as you customize it in that way. But quite frankly, Mixpanel is entirely based on events, and so if you're going
Yeah.
to go the event route, you would probably focus on a Mixpanel, for example, but maybe using some sort of distributive code like a segment.io, which allows you to code for Mixpanel events, but also syndicate those same events to other platforms like a Google Analytics or
Okay.
Kissmetrics.
And now explain to me
So
segment.io. I'm not familiar with them. So tell me
sure.
again, what exactly do they allow you to do?
So segment.io is basically, and this has just come upon my radar over the last couple of weeks and months,
Okay, good.
is
Now I
that
don't feel dumb.
no, it's so good. So basically, it's solving the pain point for developers of a guy like me, the
Mm-hmm.
the, the growth guy, asking to implement this particular event strategy
Mm-hmm.
for Mixpanel, and then suddenly, several weeks in, we say, you know what, we don't want to use Mixpanel anymore. We want to use Platform A or Platform B,
Okay.
and so what this does is allows you to take the already existing event code implementation
Okay.
and simply syndicate it very easily to another tool.
No, that makes
So
sense.
it's eliminating double and triple work, and that's key if you're using some of these various tools. So in our case, we are using Mixpanel, we are using Google Analytics.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, I have used Kissmetrics.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, at Speak, we are not necessarily ramping up our Kissmetrics strategy. That's not to say any sort of negative thing about the product.
Yeah.
Actually, Hiten Shah is one of our advisors, so it's kind of ironic there. But that said,
Yeah.
we are committing to Mixpanel at the moment.
Well, tell me what your thinking is
Sure.
there, because there's going to be companies that are trying to figure out which one to go with, or both, or what they do. What's making you lean more toward Mixpanel? Because honestly, I had a guy on last week tell me the same thing, that they're leaning toward Mixpanel. So what's making that the decision for you guys?
Well, I personally believe that Kissmetrics is more about a sort of an overall high-level dashboard view experience,
Mm-hmm.
and they're really great at that. And so if you can structure it in such a way where your dashboard has your 5, 6, 7 core metrics,
Mm-hmm.
how I've used it in the past, and I welcome my peers and others to sort of steer me in a different direction if I'm in fact wrong here. But how I've used it in the past is to almost be a check-in behavior. So you go to your
Okay.
Kissmetrics dashboard, you see your statistics for that day, and then
Okay.
you can change it for the week or for a month, etc. And it's very easy and very user-friendly in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
But with regards to Mixpanel, I feel like you can really add a lot of logic to your searches and to your charts.
Okay.
You want to see particular users that have done action A but have not done action B, and within a certain time range or date range, who fit
Yeah.
a certain demographic. And I think that is invaluable. And so that's why
No,
we
that makes total sense, and that's what I was wondering. That's perfect. Let's
sure.
talk a little bit about Speek's growth. I don't know
Okay.
if you guys have actually publicly released any numbers. I'm not sure. Have you guys released any of your growth numbers yet?
We have not, and I would say that in terms of the overall place of where we're at,
Mm-hmm.
we're still technically in public beta,
Mm-hmm.
and so we mean what we say in that we are more focused on the feedback, which leads to relaunches and
Yep.
feature ads. And one of those, of course, as I mentioned before, being scheduling a call, the inherently viral
Yeah.
feature of our product. And so I say that to say that we're not necessarily, it's not so much like some sort of private information that we don't want to disclose. It's more like,
You're just not
hey,
there yet. Yeah.
we're not there yet. We're
Yeah.
not there yet. And, I personally have been on with the team. I mean, historically, I've been involved in various forms since its inception
Yeah.
as a product. But I've now come on full time
Mm-hmm.
as the growth role for just a few weeks now. I would say maybe one month,
Yeah.
6 weeks possibly. So
Yeah.
we're juiced about what the next year will be for us. But yeah, I don't think growth numbers today
They
are
don't
something
matter
to
yet.
report.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something to report
Yeah.
so much
You're-
as like let's have the same conversation 6 months from now.
Absolutely. Well, it's like you said with lean, startups. You're in learning mode. You're trying to figure out what the metrics you already have mean, so that when you bring in all these other users, they won't be falling out of a leaky bucket. You'll actually know how to retain them. You'll know what the value that they want really is and what it isn't. You're learning right now, so that when you grow, the growth is sustainable and real. So I think it's smart, and I think it's good for people to hear that. Right now, you've had some users come into the system though, because you need some users just to to get some data, to try things out, all those
Of
kind of
course.
things. What activities have you been engaged in to get some of your initial user acquisitions in your public beta? What channels are you using? Or let me ask this: what channel is giving you the best results as you get people in to try to learn from?
Sure. So, quite frankly, I think this applies to most startups, but PR has done well for us so far, and generally those are spiked behavior. They're
Yeah.
not sustainable, but they have gotten a large amount of users at one given moment
Well, let me ask you
into
this,
our database.
because a lot of startups want to use the PR strategy. Do you think that being a part of 500 startups really gave you a leg up on being featured in TechCrunch and things like that? Do you think it's a real strategy for people that are not a part of some other thing that already has a name? If you don't have a big name investor, if you don't have a 500 startups behind you, do you think PR is good for them, or it just really works for you because of the platform you're on?
Well, PR is a loaded term, so
There you go.
there's two ways to interpret what I'm saying here. The PR is like, hey, writer John Doe has written about us, right? That's
Mhm.
straightforward. But one thing that's worked for us is guest posting, and so
Okay.
using the PR process, right? So the pitch
Yeah.
to sell, but not so much selling these writers and editors on our product so much as on our team,
Hmm.
and on the fact that we have a bunch of rock stars and they have a lot of valuable things to say, and we've actually taken that approach and been written up in everywhere from Fast Company to Forbes. We've been highlighted in Entrepreneur.com. So, just doing everything that we can to have our name and brand and team members
Yeah.
visible within the PR spectrum. I think that is something that is not solely determined by popularity or raising money. I think it's definitely something where you just need to grind out
Yeah.
and do as much reach out as possible.
Well, use the word grind, and I think it's interesting that in so many of the interviews that I've conducted on this show so far, that they take a small word like PR, and then they show you that really it's a process and a lot of hard work. Or you take a word like viral coefficient, really it's a process and a lot of hard work. Any of these
Absolutely.
little bitty words that seem like quick add-ons or quick fixes, behind the scenes is just somebody working 60, 80 hours a week is all it really is. There's no easy shortcuts. Growth and sustainable growth is really just grinding it out, like you said. So I like that. PR is not a moment; it's a process, and you're using that process to get people to understand your team and some of those kind of things. I think that's great. As we kind of close up the interview here, let me ask you a few questions for you to kind of give back to the community a little bit. What's maybe the best piece of advice that you could give to someone who's beginning their journey as a growth lead, as a growth hacker, as a CMO? They're trying to break into this space. What advice would you give to someone in that situation?
Well, I think it goes without saying that you need to understand your users, and not just your current users, but also the personas that you're targeting.
Mm-hmm.
You need to understand not just who they are from a demographic standpoint, but what the pain point is, what they're looking for,
Mm-hmm.
what tools they use. Obviously, being competitors in your space, what are they using that you want
Mm-hmm.
them to no longer use?
Yeah.
What are the pain points for that product? For example, Speek being a business communications tool, Skype, for example, is the
Mm-hmm.
highest level of direct competitor.
Mm-hmm.
Folks, so we want to always understand. Okay, well, people are tired
Mm-hmm.
of conversations buffering,
Mm-hmm.
or just delays,
Mm-hmm.
or the fact that you have to install an exe file. Pardon me, I'm on my PC days, but
That's all right. Yeah,
you
yeah.
have to install you have to install a file, for
Yeah.
example, and we start there.
Mm-hmm.
We start there, and just really nailing the understanding of both user and competitive advantages you have over competition, I think is at the key. And then from there, prioritization
Mm-hmm.
is very important. So
Mm-hmm.
we are all avid brainstormers, thinkers,
Mm-hmm.
strategists, but at the core is execution, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the ability to say, okay, well, from these 20 different things we want to do,
Mm-hmm.
from various insights and feedback, both quantitative and qualitative, it's been determined that these four things
Mm-hmm.
are our priorities, and literally just trying to crank on a weekly, bi-weekly, whatever your cycle is,
Mm-hmm.
just trying to continue to iterate.
Yeah.
With priority A followed by B followed by C, and just keeping your head down and putting in your time, and next thing you know, you'll turn around, and many of these projects that you had worked on week one are showing results on week five, for
Yeah.
example. So just staying focused
Yeah.
in terms of prioritization is
There you
very
go.
important.
So understand your user and stack ranking
Sure.
priorities and just work through the
Sure.
list. There you go.
Sure, and also I can't stress enough. You know, virality is something that people throw around that word all the time, but
Mm-hmm.
it is very tangible. There is a viral coefficient, which is nothing more than a math equation, and so you
Mm-hmm.
want to optimize that math equation. You
Yeah.
want to inherently send as many invites as possible
Mm-hmm.
without being spammy.
There you go.
That's
Yeah.
that's the catch, right? And so the way to do that is to provide value,
Mm-hmm.
or to provide an inherent incentive for someone to join on to your platform. And for us,
Mm-hmm.
we feel very confident that conference calls by definition is the space to be to create a no-brainer sort of viral loop. When someone says, "Hey, Bronson's on this conference call and he wants to connect with you. Click here to connect."
Yeah.
That's pretty straightforward. I don't feel like that's as salesy as other invites that I've received as a user. So
No, absolutely. There's
I feel
value
good about
in the
that.
actual invite because they're
Exactly.
literally going on to a call. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. All right, last question.
Sure.
You're someone who's always learning, always growing. You're trying to figure out what's next. Give us the name of one resource that you just think is invaluable for somebody in your situation to stay on top of their game. What resource would you send people to? It could be a blog, it could be a book, it could be a person that they should talk to. I mean, anything. What's a resource that you feel like we need to know about?
Well, okay, so I'm going to cop out of that
fine.
question with a broader answer, which
Mhm.
is, I think, just continuing to fill your mind with wisdom.
There you
It's
go.
not too.
Yeah.
I just feel like having your core blogs or
Mhm.
information sources is key. Like, for example, and there's some irony here, as I mentioned earlier, we focus on mixed panel
Mhm.
and not so much KISS metrics.
Mhm.
But that said, I'm an avid reader and email opener of the Kissmetrics blog emails.
Yeah.
I think that Neil Patel and his team have done an amazing job of content,
Yeah.
and so I'm learning with every email. I think that's key. And also being able to find advisors or maybe one core advisor in your space. At the end of the day, no matter how much of a rock star someone might be, they're
Hmm.
still a person who is in this game for the same thing you are, which is to grow and learn.
Hmm.
And we all want to succeed. We all want to make some money.
Yeah,
So I think everyone can appreciate that. And those folks who we might consider advisors were at one point on the other side of the screen, right here where we are. So
absolutely.
I think that's definitely key as well.
Yeah, I think you said something there that's so important. So I want to reiterate it just for a second. One of the resources is actually going and being a part of other people's funnel. Like actually
Right.
be a user and see how they're treating you and what they're saying and why they're saying it. I read a tweet the other day. Somebody said, if you have all the ads turned off on your browser and you're a growth lead, you're doing it wrong because you need to
Of
see what
course.
people are doing when you're moving around the web. And it's kind of that same point. You need to be a part of other people's marketing strategy because you're going to learn, just by, actually being the end user, and you're going to see it with a different perspective, a different set of eyes. You're going to see, oh, this is how I feel with this kind of email. This is when I want to unsubscribe. This is when I don't. This is when I want
All
to
right.
click through. This is when I don't. And so you're
Right.
going to be learning these intangibles that could be probably more valuable than any book or resource alone could be. So I think that's incredible advice you've given us. Chris, thank you so much for being a part of our program. Best of luck to Speak. I think you guys are onto something. There's definitely a
Thank you.
pain as somebody who uses Skype often. When you say the word buffer, I cringe and die a little bit
Yeah.
inside. And so
Yeah. Absolutely.
keep doing what you're doing. I know you'll find your audience, and I know you guys will grow, especially with somebody like you behind the helm, really looking after the user. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, and best of luck to you, Bronson, and Growth Hacker TV. I love what you guys are doing here, just providing value to folks who are looking to learn.
Hmm.
And I and my peers are grateful to you for what you've got going on here. So,
Thanks a lot.
awesome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. See you later, Chris.
All right. Bye.